Universal constants and emergent systemic regimes. Physics is full of constants, numbers that appear in our equations. Fixed, immutable, universal. We treat them like furniture, just there as they are, written into reality from outside. But what if they're not arbitrary? What if each constant is a marker, a threshold, the universe's way of announcing that something new is about to emerge? In the Theory of Primeon, constants are not decorative coefficients. They are the boundary stones of reality. Let's walk through them. C, the limit of propagation. The speed of light. We learn it as a number. We treat it as a speed limit. But it is something deeper. C is the maximum rate at which causal structure can propagate through the field. In relativity, it binds space and time together. In electromagnetism, it emerges from the field itself. In quantum field theory, it governs how information travels. From our systemic perspective, C marks the first regime of organization. Pure propagation. Synchrony that copies itself from node to node without ever forming closure. The photon lives here, massless, unconfined, pure transmission, no interior, no boundary, just pattern advancing. C is not the speed of an object, it is the structural limit of free synchrony. The quantum of action Planck's constant. It appears wherever phase matters. Energy and frequency are linked by it. Action and phase are linked by it. Is not just a very small number. It is the scale at which coherent phase becomes physically real, the transition from chaos to order. Without it, there is no stable interference, no discrete modes, no quantum states. Below this threshold, synchrony is continuous noise. At this threshold, it becomes structured pattern, marks the regime where the field stops behaving like chaos and starts behaving like music. It is the constant of coherent recurrence. The minimum packet of organized action the universe will recognize as real. The signature of closure P appears wherever curvature appears. Circles, waves, angular momentum, quantum phase rotations. Why? Not by coincidence. Because P marks the transition from linear propagation to closure. When synchrony folds onto itself, forming loops, rotations, bounded cycles, P appears inevitably. This is the 2D regime, where, for the first time, a pattern can return to itself. And from that return, charge emerges as orientation. Interference becomes measurable. Boundary becomes real. P is not mystical. It is the constant of curvature. The signature of the moment the universe first drew a closed line. V, the Higgs scale. The Higgs vacuum expectation value. It determines the mass of the W and Z bosons. It sets the electroweak scale. But structurally, what does it mean? V is the threshold at which synchrony can stabilize volumetrically. Below this scale, synchrony propagates or forms planar closures. At this scale, full three-dimensional interiority becomes possible. Mass appears not as substance added from outside, but as stable interior synchronization. An enclosed volume of coherent field that the universe now has to account for. V is the constant of volumetric transition. The moment the universe stopped being a surface and became a solid. G, gravitational coupling. Newton's constant. It links mass energy to curvature. It governs how strongly interiority reshapes the field. Gravity reflects how the presence of stable interiority modifies geometry itself. If C governs propagation and governs its minimum coherence, V governs interior stabilization, and G governs the field's response to all that closure. G is the constant of large-scale structural consequence. The universe registering geometrically that something stable exists inside its field. The cosmological constant. The cosmological constant appears as curvature even in empty space. No matter, no energy, and still a term in the equation. What is it? From our systemic reading, it reflects the residual order of the basal field itself. Not a fluid, not a force. The macrostatistical baseline. The background hum of the field before anything has organized into structure. L is the constant of the global structural tendency of the field, a macroscopic level, as a macrosystem. The universe's resting state, its tendency to keep expanding, to keep generating relational distance, because total coincidence is impossible. The pattern. Look at what we have. Propagation, C, quantized coherence, closure, P, volumetric stabilization, V, geometric response, G, cosmic baseline, L. Each constant corresponds to a new level of organization. They do not compete. They do not contradict. They scaffold reality. One builds on the next. Each one marking a threshold the universe crossed on its way to becoming what it is. Why constants don't change? Constants are the same everywhere in the universe, because the grammar of the field does not change. The rules of propagation are the same in a galaxy 10 billion light-years away as they are here, because they are not external rules. They are structural consequences of what the field is, and regimes emerge from that field, from pure propagation to closure to interiority, to systems, to galaxies, to observers. And every time a new level appears, a constant stands there, like a boundary stone, marking the transition. Not separate laws, not multiple universes, not arbitrary numbers, one field, one grammar, multiple emergent thresholds. That is how constants become structural, and structure becomes reality.